I'm going to speak a little bit about cognitive theory, and I'm going to focus now on rational emotive behavioral theory, which was founded by Albert Ellis in the 1950s. And one aspect of the cognitive theory is that the problem actually is not as much what happens to us, but how we perceive, how we see things. So our thoughts, our beliefs about what happens to us is actually what brings us most suffering. So sometimes we think that we should change the situation, or that some event caused us suffering, but it's not the event actually, it is our thoughts, our beliefs, or how we perceive. And one very important thing is that sometimes we think we shouldn't have negative thoughts, and this is not very easy, or maybe it's impossible not to have negative thoughts. Thoughts come to our mind, it's natural. The problem is if we feed these thoughts, if we believe in these thoughts. So we need to be a little bit, you need to focus on these thoughts and not believe on them or discard them, because sometimes we think that every thought that comes to our mind is the truth, but it's not this way. So sometimes we have negative thoughts, and these thoughts make us be unhappy, sad, distressed, and we need to challenge these thoughts. If we are sad, it's not as much what happened to us or the event, but how we are seeing this. We realize that what produce our feelings are our thoughts. So sometimes we think that the events are the ones to blame for us to be sad. So then we feel like victims, because sometimes we can't change the events, we can't control the events, and we also can't control people. For example, if someone mistreats us, how can we change that person? We can influence that person, but we cannot change the person. So what we need to change is our reactions, our thoughts about what the person has done to us, and also the events. So sometimes a bad thing happens to us, and we think that we cannot do anything but be desperate, sad, depressed. But we actually can do. We can't change the event sometimes. For example, we can change the weather. If it's gonna rain, it's gonna rain. If it's gonna have a hurricane, it's gonna have a hurricane. So what we can do actually is change our thoughts, the way we see these things. For example, we may exaggerate the events. We may make a catastrophe of the events. We may magnify them, make them much worse than they really are. And the thoughts that run in our minds, such as, oh, this thing shouldn't happen to me, this is really terrible, I can't bear this situation. So these are the kind of thoughts that makes us sad. And there is a theory in the cognitive theory, which is the ABC theory. The ABC theory is that A stands for the event. So A is what happens to us. B is how we perceive what happened to us, how we see that, the thoughts, the beliefs that come to our minds. And C are the feelings, the behavior, or the consequence. If we feel sad or happy, if you are angry. So usually we think that C is a consequence of A, or our sadness, our depression, our happiness, whatever it is a consequence of the event or what happened to us. So this theory, the ABC theory, says that it's not A that causes C, but it's B that causes C. So what we make of what happens, how we perceive our thoughts. So what we need actually to change are not the events, because the events we can't change. Sometimes we can, sometimes not. So what we can do is change our thoughts. This is our area of control. So you see that life can be wonderful for us, but it can be terrible. We can see the world in a negative way. We may think that we are victims and we were born to suffer, we are destined to be unhappy. But we may also see that the world is wonderful if we accept things as they are. So changing ourselves means accepting the reality. And sometimes we want to fight reality. We want to control the events. We want to control people. We want to control situations. But sometimes we can't. But this is the area that we can control. We can control ourselves. So we can accept whatever happens to us. We can try to see things in a positive and more realistic way. So this is what rational emotive behavior theory means. What Albert Ellis was intending when he created this name is that what is irrational is our thoughts. So we need sometimes see the lie in our thoughts, or doubt, or question our thoughts. And sometimes we don't like to question our thoughts because it gives us some insecurity. We don't like to think that we are wrong. We want to feel like we are right. And sometimes people question us and they say, well, do you think that's really the truth? Don't you think that's different? And we feel hurt. But it's very important that we are humble to see that we might be really wrong, and that's not a problem, you know. If our thoughts are making us unhappy, so that's okay to question them and realize that we might be wrong. And in this theory that I was saying, the ABC theory, there is D. D is a different thoughts or different beliefs or different ways of seeing what happens to us. So we need to switch B, which are the negative thoughts, the irrational thoughts, the distorted thoughts, for more positive and more realistic thoughts. And then it's going to have a different result. And actually, so D would be the new thoughts, the positive thoughts, and then E is going to be the different result, the different feelings that we are going to have. So feelings of acceptance, feelings of happiness, feelings of calmness, forgiveness. We may accept people as they are, realize that we can't control them, and accept them. And some other important things of rational emotive behavior theory are shoulds, oughts, and musts. So sometimes we think, well, I should be happy, I should have overcome depression already, I should be perfect, I must get everyone's approval,